We're talking about the real Clare Bowditch tonight, and look, I know there's one person sitting here to the right of me, but sometimes it feels like there's about 3 different Clare Bowditches in Australia at any one moment, doing all sorts of different things. On our screens, she's not just on Offspring, but you know, she's witty has been on Spicks and Specks.
It's all scripted.
Completely scripted. Oh, he writes all that stuff for you?
My husband.
Oh, right. He's a smart man. She's married to the wonderful Marty, who is also her drummer. Now, you may think that a good man is hard to find, a good drummer is harder to find. So she's found the 2 hardest things to find in one man. So that's incredible as well.
Thanks, Barry.
Now, if anyone has seen Clare play live, they will know there's so much love in the room coming from the audience and that she's giving back. You could probably power a small country off the love. She really does have this relationship with her fans, and they give it back in spades. And I saw her on her Modern Day Addiction tour in 2010. My face was hurting at the end because I was smiling so much. But the truth is, Clare Bowditch, you were not a happy camper at all back then, were you?
Well, I think... thank you for that observation. Of course I was happy, don't be ridiculous. So here's the reality. So I'm sort of shuffling in my chair because this is so comfortable. I kind of want to go, oh yeah.
Might take this home with us.
Here's the truth. I had been travelling and travelling and travelling. So I have 3 children. I am very lucky. Marty is also my manager and my sound engineer. And together with our 3 children, we had identical twins who were 18 months old at the time, and we had a 6-year-old girl, and we were I started to be keen to pursue an international career. I went overseas, I toured with my friend Wally Gautier. Things worked out pretty well for him.
You've heard of him, right? You heard that song every, 15 minutes last year on the radio?
I just hear a cha-ching each time I hear it. It's amazing, and it's wonderful to have this kind of success.
He's happy.
Oh boy, is he happy. No, you know what? The truth is, Wally was happy. He was pretty sorted anyway, as sorted as a genius can be. So here's the reality. We were too busy, Barry. We travelled to Berlin, we were touring, and I started to experience an old kickback, the old anxiety / distression, as I like to call it, you know, waking up in the morning and I was just exhausted. Mm-hmm. And I felt like I was trapped in that idea of success that really didn't suit me. And we came back to Australia, and I went to my trusty GP. I've never taken antidepressants in all of my... I actually solve my unhappiness problems, usually with the help of art and talking to good friends or in front of large audiences about highly personal things. I think it's always a good technique.
So your career is half therapy?
Pretty much,
right.
Yeah. I'm just using you right now, guys, and thanks so much for being part of my master plan. So I went to my GP and I said, look, I know I'm on a low ebb, and she's a bit of a hippie. She's a bit of a hippie aunt. She sort of said, well, you could try the fish oil, and how about some more greens and a little more sleep, and did you know you were born to be happy? And I just looked at her and went... Did a light globe sort of appear? Or? I just said to her, do you have any fucking idea how busy I am? I have 3 children, you know, and they're small and they need me. And I have a career, and I've got record company people to make... I don't really. I am with a record company, but they're very happy for me to do what I want. I had this imagined pressure. Mm-hmm. And I guess this is all by way of saying, no, it was a tough time. And I wrote an album about it and through it, and it was called Modern Day Addiction. Uh-huh.
And also, around this same time, you met a man in his mid-70s named Leonard Cohen and toured the country with him.
Yeah.
Tell me about what that experience was like and what Leonard taught you, if anything.
Oh, Leonard.
Where do you begin?
So I just quickly, I had a chance to do a show with Leonard. At the same time, I was unfortunately breaking up with my manager at the time, who's a dear friend. It was pretty traumatic, and somehow the message didn't get through that I'd been invited to play with Leonard. And I found out retrospectively that this invitation had gone and been. And,
that is a message you don't want to miss.
Oh, it was just horrid. Anyway, the point is, I went to his show, I saw it, I just thought, how amazing, how inspiring. And then, curiously, a year later, I got a call to not only do a show with Leonard, but to do an entire tour with him. So Leonard apparently had heard the album, enjoyed it, and decided that I would do. What I learnt from him was the power of routine, the power of mastery. I learnt that just through observing him on the sides. I learnt that he's a goddamn charmer. When a 76-year-old man says to you, Clare Bowditch, if I were only 2 years younger, you'd be in trouble.
How many years?
2.
Wow.
And so my
What's his secret?
Yeah, exactly. He's got something, I tell you what. And as my husband, as Marty said at the time, you know, all these years of touring with handsome men, and this is the only time I've really been truly concerned for our marriage. And he also taught me something about happiness. So I was just I just started to really change the way that I live. I'd started to slow down. I decided, I started making the decisions that led to the next album, the winter I chose Happiness, which was, you know, just bringing it in a lot. You know, my thing, I always wanted to have my kids with me on the road and blah, blah, blah. And yet I wanted this very slow, settled life for them. So it was constant contradiction. Leonard said to me, at 65, he came down from the mountain one day, and that's when it dropped for him. He lived in a state of real not happiness for most of his life. And that's why he was in the monastery for all that time. But it's actually not until he came down from the mountain and went to India and you know, had a new experience that at 65 it dropped. And I said to him, Leonard, do you believe in God? He said, believe in God? I know God. and he also told me that...
He co-writes my songs.
Yeah, Jesus. Yeah, so a lot of things like that, you know, very profound things. Of course, he's a busy guy with a million, you know, people wanting his attention. So each time we got into a D&M, someone would come in, and that was fine as well. But it was a wonderful experience because it taught me about the role of resilience and entertaining people, you know, spreading enjoyment in the world.
Now, also, a couple of weeks, Claire and I talked on the phone, and she mentioned a bag of rocks. Not a literal bag of rocks, I don't think so anyway. She might have one with her. A metaphorical bag of rocks she was carrying around with her that she needed to drop. And I was wondering, Claire, if you could share with us what exactly was in your metaphorical bag of rocks and what it took to drop it.
So for me, the bag of rocks were the stories I was telling myself about who I had to be, who I wasn't, who I wanted to be, who I should be. I just began to be aware of that story that we all have in our heads that runs constantly, which is you're not enough, you're not enough, you're not enough. And there was this thing I had always wanted to do with my life, which was the thing that gave me great joy. I do it at every one of my shows when I can. I bring people up on stage. I get the audience singing. We should just do it now. Just do this. This line. A little louder now, come on. No one can see you. Here. A bit louder. Over here. Can you guys just, I know you can harmonise, so just go, Let's hear it. Go and play. Okay, is there someone in the room who's a genius who can sort of do a little na-na-na-na-na?
I think that's you.
Okay. Anyway, did you feel that feeling that we just had just for a second there? Okay, so it's you and me, we're in this together, we're singing together. That is the true exchange between an audience and a performer, I believe, and that's what I love doing. So I just had to put down that sack of stories, which is that you can't, you know, if you're going to be a rock star, you can't also be a healer or be a, you know, all these other things. So you can't be a stay-at-home mum in the garden. Just let them go and thought, what do I want to do? And that's how I started, you know, doing the things that I'm doing now with creative people.
And yes, one of the things you're doing is big-hearted business, which is mentoring creative people who maybe have massive left sides of their brain, but the right side isn't so good. And you're trying to bring that together, right?
Exactly. Well, that's, that business person, the left brain of business people, we're teaching about creativity. We're also teaching right brain creatives about business.
Right.
And we are trying to do that in a way that makes perfect sense. So, most of the times I go to conferences, this is an exception, a lot of them are really boring. We decided to make an amazing conference, and of course, it was called the Big Hearted Business Conference. It sold out in 5 days. We could have sold out the size of this auditorium. People want to connect with their creativity, and I know how to do it. And it kind of went, okay, that is more pleasurable for me than chasing a chart position. Chart positions come and go, Barry, as you know, and we've been lucky. We have had some success there, but I went with where the pleasure and the that's where I'm at the moment, going where the pleasure is. So each week we make inspiration bombs. There's stories with creative people, and we'd love to hear from any of you about, what you want, what you need. You can write to us.
Now, you mentioned earlier your latest album out late last year was The Winter I Chose Happiness.
That's right.
Now, I've interviewed a hell of a lot of songwriters.
Yes.
And just about, I'd say 99% of them say it is way easier to write a good sad song than it is to write a good happy song. Because let's face it, happy songs often are twee or happy clappy, or they just don't work. Whereas sad songs say it so well, don't they? As someone once said. Yeah. How hard was it to write an entire album about happiness? Not just one song, but a whole album of it.
I think, again, it goes back to this question that's been discussed so beautifully today. What is happiness? What is this thing that we strive for? For me, I realise it is not a static state of euphoria at all. This, for me, is happiness. We're talking about real things, real experiences. This is an exchange of happiness for me. Creating, spaces where you can tell true stories in a way that doesn't sink you. That's what I tried to do with this album. I didn't try and pretend that happiness didn't exist, but I wanted to explore that question. Is it possible to write music that, to be frank, isn't shit about happiness,
That's a technical term, by the way.
That's right. And does this make me less of an artist? So I always go with my albums in the place that scares me the most, and this was it. Because in Australia, you have such limited opportunity to have your songs on the radio. There are all sorts of other ways to create businesses, which is exciting. But in traditional terms, if I'm suddenly writing a song about happiness, does this mean that Triple J no longer plays me? And does this mean that this station won't cover me, or this, so on? So I decided to think instead about what we wanted to talk about rather than, So that's what the experience of the album was like, and it was I enjoyed it.
Yeah, good.
Thanks, Barry.
Now we are actually going to hear a song from Clare, and it is from the latest album, and it's called Amazing Life. What's weird is I wrote out a list of 3 songs when I first approached Clare about doing today, about songs I thought would be good to do, and the number one on the list was the one she ended up telling me unprompted that she wanted to do. So this must be the one that's meant to happen.
This is it.
Amazing Life. Tell us a bit about this song that we're about to hear and how you wrote it and where your head was at and how it happened.
You know how we have this story that you're supposed to write brilliant songs really quickly, and songwriters, they just sit down and they just channel the experience, and I just wrote this hit in 3 seconds. That sometimes happens. It happened for me once with this song called You Make Me Happy, but it didn't happen with this one. So Amazing Life I started writing when I was 19 years old.
That was only 2 years ago.
Yes, that's right. So now that I'm 21, I've grown. And I couldn't finish it. It was about the paralysis I felt I was in regards to what the hell I was going to do with my life, how I was going to do something meaningful in the world and also make my living and also try something different and fight a good fight and at the same time do nothing at all, just enjoy my... I didn't know how it would work. And the chorus came a year ago on the day of recording. We went into the studio in our backyard, and I had a back injury at the time. This was recorded lying flat on my back on a mattress. and it came to me. So again, what we were talking about, the slow moments, often when...
Yeah.
I don't want to call myself a genius, but that's when that's sometimes when the chorus, the song will finish itself. So it took a while.
But you don't recommend having a back injury to get to that point?
You can, and it's something we didn't talk about. To be honest, Big Hearted Business popped up when I was flat on my back, and I thought, all right, so finally life has said to me, what if you don't get to be Madonna? What then?
Clare Bowditch is now going to sing for us Amazing Life. And I hate it when interviewers sit on stage when someone else is singing. There's a guitar and there's Clare Bowditch. They should be together by themselves. So I'm going to leave the stage and say thank you very much.
Before Barry leaves, this is one of our finest writers. He dives deep into things that other people, don't bother to very often because just...
Thank you.
Thank you.
Clare Bowditch, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
You want to write a novel, make beautiful music, act in the theater with inspiring humans, learn a language, run like the wind, help people fit and travel to every country, make $1 million and smile when your children have babies, make the heart your home, inviting and warm you want. An amazing life that you can't decide. You think you have to be fully formed already, don't you? You want this amazing life that you can't decide. You don't have to be just one thing, but you have to start with something. So you'll be a little bit older in October. You've reneged on your pre-birth promise, and now you think this journey is over. Well, let me encourage you to know you will feel it when it is over. And if it just feels like hell, take it as a sign you need time to be still and listen for a while. You want this amazing life that you can't decide. You think you have to be fully formed already, don't you? You want this amazing life that you can't decide. You don't have to be just one thing, but you have to start with something. You don't have to be just one thing, but you have to start with something. You do not have to be just one thing, but you have to start with something. Thank you.